So I thought I would talk and get a little bit better video on this dust collector that I've got back here. The system is setting off the floor a little ways. You can see this PVC pipe here. This is filled with desiccant beads. It's got about a 2-inch diameter brass filter on the bottom of that prevents the desiccant from falling too far. I have to empty it about every 6 months. The desiccant will start turning pink, but it keeps moisture out of my system. This dust collector has a drive motor that I've added. It didn't come with the dust collector. It's actually pretty useful. After the dust collector runs for a minute and a half, it does a cleaning cycle when the dust collector turns off. In that programming, it's controlled down under here. There is an Arduino sitting inside of a containment down here. That Arduino runs the program for the dust collector. And then attached to the plug is a current sensor. And that current sensor just monitors when the dust collector turns on and off so it can run the program. Also in here is my air compressor. It collects a little dust because it's got oil. It's an oiled system. So we get a little bit of dust from that air compressor. And all of this is enclosed inside of a sound dampened room. And the whole point of that is to make it so I don't have to listen to it. So when they're on, they're actually pretty silent. You don't hear a lot of it. It's pretty well insulated, and it's got soundboard on the outside. These are the air regulators. There's a little green light glowing back there. Kind of hard to see, but that green light and those air regulators are for the blast gate operation. The power supply actually powers the motor on the dust collector and the Arduinos and all the blast gate valves. So this right here is my downdraft table. It's cooked my dust collector with 2 4-inch ports. It's got a switch that turns it on and off. I've got the table saw. It's a Grizzly. The saw is incredibly nice. Been really useful. This was probably the best investment I've ever made, is this sliding attachment. It works wonderfully. It has no side-to-side movement or anything, and it will support the weight of an entire 4x8 sheet just fine. There's my planer. It's a 15-inch. That has been the only machine that's ever plugged my system. Before we moved to this home, I had that machine and my joiner hooked into the same 4-inch port, and that plugged up 3 or 4 times. I changed that system pretty dramatically when we moved here. This is my shaper, and I have a Delta feeder on it. This is actually a current sensor. You just pass one of the legs of the power through that center post, and it simply senses magnetic fields around that and turns and tells the Arduinos to turn on and turn off. This is my Cyclone. I built this. This is Lexan polycarbonate. It's a pretty simple design. All it has is two 90-degree elbows that go into it. And then the main port that creates the vacuum from the dust collector is a 6-inch, which goes right into the dust collector. Since I put this in, and this system alone operates the joiner and the planer. That some of the best things about the system is this separator. This Cyclone separator has worked wonderful. It makes it easier to change. I don't have to change the bag on the filtration system. This planer not only doesn't get ever clogged, now it also doesn't even see a chip from it coming out the backside. I don't get any chips on the board. I don't get chip impressions from the roller system inside of it or anything like that, because the sawdust has to travel such a short distance. And when I run it, I usually only run one gate at a time. I'm usually the only one working in the shop, and because I'm only running one gate, this 4-inch port coming from the planer is being pulled by a 6-inch going straight to the dust collector. I like having the dust collector out of the middle of the room. It's kind of nice to have it because they're a little bit loud. The air compressor by far is the loudest. But planers obviously make a lot of noise too, but there isn't much I can do about that. It kind of needs to be where it is. Cyclone, it's great for unloading. It just has a normal barrel that I bought from Home Depot, and it gets a lot of the dust and I don't have to keep refilling it. Now you'll notice on these valves, so they have a cylinder. On the front and back is something that I haven't seen very much used in at least the videos I've seen for automatic blast gates. This one and this one are actually flow regulators. What they do is they will reduce the speed in which it opens and closes. And so you can control with this knob how fast it opens and how fast it closes. I'm just pushing a bypass that is a mechanical bypass for them. They're electrically hooked up and the Arduinos turn them on and off. The solenoid valve has 5 ports. The best way to explain this is on this side, the red tube coming in is the air supply. The 2 tubes coming out on the back side go to the cylinder flow regulators on both sides of the cylinder. And then the other 2 ports that are on this side that have blue hoses, they're exhaust. And they have a couple of connectors that connect them all together, so they exhaust all together through just one brass filter. There's 2 gates sitting right here. One is for the planer, the other one is for the joiner. These solenoid valves are incredibly cheap. I picked them up on Amazon for about $8, and they work great. The whole entire system is about $60 to set up. That includes the solenoid, the cylinder, the mount bracket, the flow regulators, pretty much all the hosing, and the current sensor. And you only need one Arduino to run all of them, and you can kind of add them as you need them or want to add them. So The other thing that I have is I have this one up here on this system. I have multiples of these. This is actually a 6-inch valve system. You can see that ram's quite a lot longer. Same thing, flow regulators, and these are directional flow regulators. Air in is at full, air out is controlled. So it bypasses in and then controls the outlet air. And what that does is that equalizes pressure on both sides of the piston, basically inside the cylinder, so that pressure is equalized and it slows the movement of the ram. The system is not completely put together yet. I still have this one section that has to be finished. This section right here is where we're going to connect in the new Delta double drum sander. This side is going to the saw. I'm changing it because what I did originally, which wasn't really smart, but at the time I just wanted to get it done because I needed to do a cabinet job. I originally put a 4-inch duct through here, and that 4-inch was restricting as it went through here. I did that for 2 reasons. This has to go underneath a beam because this garage has another garage above it, and this beam supports the weight of my vehicles in that garage. And so this had to go underneath, so I don't have a lot of head clearance underneath this thing, but I have enough, and so it works. The system is basically 6-inch pipe as long as I can run it. Where I don't, the shaper has 2 4-inch feeds to it. Then obviously I talked about the sander, it has 2. Try to think what else. I've got ports over here. As soon as I get around to it, I'm taking this saw and going to build a stand so that it locks on the same way it locks onto this stand in place, and then it has a cabinet that actually catches the dust, and the port for it sitting right there. My saw, to get it to my saw without it being in the way, I ran it through a square flat duct, where it actually works fairly well. My son loves to clean it out and brush all the dust that gets trapped in the bottom of the saw into that port and up into the dust collector, which I hate. Trying to think what else I can talk about here. That's pretty much the system. The valves and the regulators, they're all independently ran. They can all be turned on and turned off by the tools they have. It sets which one that's going to turn on. So I also have over here, I have a 15-inch or 14-inch Grizzly bandsaw. Great little bandsaw, bought it. It's expandable if I want to go up to a 12-inch rather than a 6-inch opening, so I could actually cut boards, you know, do some resawing with it and things like that. Trying to think what else. My chop saw is a DeWalt. At the time, most all my hand tools are rigid. The reason why is every time I've ever had a problem with a rigid tool, rigid will replace about anything for them. I have some rigid drills that are close to 14 years old, and they're still replacing parts for them. The chop saw is because it's double bevel. I don't have a sliding, and the reason I don't have a sliding is they always have play in them. Doesn't matter how well they've been built, but they always have side-to-side play. Since I build cabinets and do a lot of crown cutting, the fixed one works a lot better for that. I don't get any play inside to side. My little mini drill press I use just drill cabinet hinges. Trying to think what else you can see. The Cyclone lifts by these little levers. it pulls the thing up. That will soon be replaced. I'm going to replace it with air rams and make it so it's automated so that it will come up by itself. This is my one slider saw. This is used primarily for rough cutting. It's not incredibly accurate. It was cheap, but it's got a nice stroke. It only runs a 10-inch blade.